Yes, we can do anything we want. We shouldn't do this, though, because it would be gross. Death Valley is an endorheic basin, one in California. The floor of the valley is about 80 meters below sea level. It contains the lowest point on land in North America, 2, and is the hottest place on Earth, 3. Now, if you're the sort of person who's into world records, you might have heard that the hottest place on Earth was Al-Azizia, Libya. Al-Azizia recorded a temperature of 58.0 degrees Celsius, 136.4 degrees Fahrenheit in 1922, a mark Death Valley has never come close to. So what gives? It turns out Al-Azizia has recently been stripped of its record. In 2010, an exhaustive and definitely a little obsessive investigation led by Christopher C. Burt convinced the World Meteorological Organization that the Libyan measurement was probably a mistake. This left Death Valley with a record of 56.7 degrees Celsius, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, set in 1913. Case closed. Except it's not quite settled. Burt has raised questions about the 1913 record as well, and has gone so far as to catalog a number of historical extremes along with a credibility score for each. The real record is probably 53.9 degrees Celsius, 129 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature has been recorded 4 times, in 1960, 1998, 2005, and 2007, every time in Death Valley. These records were recorded with modern instruments and are considered reliable. They also make sense from a theoretical point of view. Geographers have calculated for that the highest possible temperature in ideal spots in desert basins like Death Valley during the 20th century is 55 to 56 degrees Celsius. So 54 degrees Celsius sounds like a reasonable world record. Now back to Nick's question. 5. Since Death Valley is below sea level, we could, as Nick suggests, flood it with seawater. It would take a lot of digging, since there's a lot of earth in the way. The lowest route to Death Valley is probably by traveling up the Colorado River watershed, along the Arizona border past Quartzsite. 6. Then northwest 7 past Zzyzx, which is a real place. If you did all that digging, you could create a channel from the Gulf of California to Death Valley, and water would flow in. We can use this handy stream flow calculator to figure out how wide we'd need to make the channel. A channel 20 meters deep and 100 meters wide should be able to fill it in a few months. A really wide channel, like the kind carved by glacial floods, could fill it in hours. We know it's possible to create this kind of inland sea because we've done it before by accident. In 1905, irrigation engineers working on the Colorado River made some mistakes. During a flood, the entire Colorado River broke through into the Alamo Canal and flowed directly into the Salton Basin to the north. By the time they repaired the canal, 2 years later, the Salton Basin had become the Salton Sea, one of the larger human caused changes to the world map. The Salton Sea is fed mainly by agricultural runoff, so it's become salinate and hypertrophic. 9 large numbers of dead fish, combined with algal decay and unusual chemistry, have created a smell that the U.S. Geological Survey describes as objectionable, noxious, unique, and pervasive. The sea is a birdwatching hotspot, but also the site of a lot of mass bird die-offs, so kind of a mixed bag if you're into birds. In recent years, the water has been evaporating quickly, leaving behind dried toxic residue, which is swept up into dust storms. Work to clean up and rehabilitate the region is ongoing. All in all, the Salton Sea is a mess, and Nick wants to make another one. Nick's Death Valley project would start off connected to the ocean, but without a source of flowing water at the Death Valley end. 10. The channel would gradually silt up. The link to the ocean would eventually be broken. The sea would start to evaporate. The water would become saline. Algae would bloom, and eventually the U.S. Geological Survey would start complaining about the smell. There would be one more consequence to all this. Thanks to the flood of cold ocean water burying the whole region, Death Valley would stop setting temperature records, and someone else would eventually claim to have broken their 129 degrees Fahrenheit record. The Death Valley records would have to be compared to the newer candidates, which would probably use slightly different methods. And that means one thing: a World Meteorological Organization expert panel.